Show is a live broadcast of truth seekers and believers, empowering the evolution of consciousness. Raphael and Celeste will dive deeper than the mainstream media while answering the mind's deeper questions and transforming conversations. They will have unique guest speakers who will share knowledge, tools, and techniques to create coherence in our mind, body, and spirit.
Good morning, good morning.
And good evening from Australia, Queensland to you, Raphael.
How are you, my dear?
Always good. Always
I
good.
know. That's a great thing, right?
You know, it's you can every morning you have that opportunity, to start fresh, eat fresh, think
Yes,
fresh,
yes.
smell fresh.
And that's why I showered.
Good.
And of course, I have to take my cold shower. And people are like, you're in New York, it's freezing there. Why are you taking a cold shower? Because it wakes me up. It makes me feel alive, right?
Gets your system going.
Yeah. So we have some interesting things to talk about today, don't we?
Yeah. When I was doing my research for most of these, it was quite, it was shocking. It was very reminding myself that how far we've come from the miseducation as well of what we're buying, what we think is fresh or what we think is vegan and healthy, and not realizing even the corporations behind who are actually producing these yummy little breakfast snacks,
Oh my
but
God.
then also sell the pharmaceutical drugs for an adult because you've been eating them all your life. So there's a few stories we're going to go into, but it's mainly just about let's eat more fresh, but why?
Yeah.
And also what it means to eat preservatives and how dangerous they are.
Yeah, yeah. It's a vicious cycle, if you will, right? Because I'm going to be very honest with you. When my parents came from Colombia, and they came first, and then they brought us, I'm one of 12, right? Isn't it crazy?
So
I'm
much
number
love.
10. I'm number 10. So I came in I'm not even going to tell you. I'm going to tell you, 1973, right? And it was a couple of days shy of my birthday, my 8th birthday. And I didn't know anything from anything, I just knew that there was food and I eat it, right? And as I got older and older, there was all this, I was eating this processed food that I probably did not eat in Colombia. I didn't. Everything was fresh. But then I came here and my parents went with the flow, right? And what was the flow? The flow back then was canned food, right? Soups, right? All the different kinds of soups, vegetables, all these different things. And then wait, TV dinners.
With the little tables you can pull into your lap.
Yes, yes. And all the processed foods and all that stuff. And it's like, wow, America is great, right? It is the best in the world. And of course, then microwaves come along, and oh my goodness, what a divine world we live in. We can have anything we want, and we don't have to wait.
No.
But
It
yet,
can
what are people doing in front of the microwave? Hurry up, hurry up, hurry up.
time.
Yes.
The shelf life, reading the label of the shelf life, anything that goes up to 5 years, you really should question yourself how that is being created to last and not to decompose, because that's the whole process.
Right.
How do you possibly think that your 8 meters of stomach, can digest it, because it's
Yeah.
been designed purposely not to break down, not to dissolve, and certainly not to decompose. And but I mean, first of all, it was advertised actually way back, and this is a bit of a storytelling I'd like to go down to in Napoleon. Okay, can I tell the story about Napoleon? Like,
You
I was
can.
so surprised, Raphael, that this all started actually in the 1800s, and it was Napoleon who started investing and almost like demanding someone to come up with more shelf life, because he wanted people to have a balanced diet. He wanted his nation, and also especially his soldiers for war, 1800s, to have seasonal based foods. So Napoleon's intentions were actually very good towards his own people, in saying, I would like to have them eat more healthier. And back then in 1801, he put out a competition for 12,000 francs back then, for someone who would finally invent long shelf life. And so Mr. Nicholas Appert won that prize, who was a French chef. And that's when it all started. This person actually working on it for many, many years, but it was through a competition that Napoleon put out that he won, and he got the attention finally in preserving food. And again, the intentions were actually really, really good with that, because they wanted to have the whole balanced diet, seasonal based food. Going then further into 1820s, they started the big factories. So it went from like hand making to having sort of the luxury of them coming out faster and faster and faster. And that even surprised me, because I thought 1820, we already had tin factories. I'm going to be honest, I wasn't
Crazy.
really aware that it's so, because we're in like 2023 now. So, and then 1858, they had like their first sort of personal war on who can patent the tin openers. So again, we're going back to like the 1850s about who invented the best tins and how fast can we produce them. And then 1870s, we had the pressure cookers steaming the food inside with that, high speed, going from hours to absolutely just minutes, pushing them out in quantities. So, but back then, again, the intentions were good. In the 1800s, they were still using the local farm.
Right.
They were still using healthy food inside, and the intentions were good. So, but this is where the story now has, unfortunately, a little bit of a sad twist in it. When we go into 1901, so this is 100 years of giving people jobs, having people eat a balanced diet, things like that, Monsanto came in. And now, on this episode, I'm only going to be talking a little bit about Monsanto, but we actually, when you go and do your own research into, the beginning of 1900s, who was starting to genetically modify the Monsanto was one of the biggest and mass producers and suppliers of these chemicals. And just to make this very clear, Monsanto is not a food company. It has never been and is not today. It is still classified and painted as a chemical company. So anything that comes from Monsanto is purely just from that angle of how can we, genetically modify or cross-pollinate or add chemicals to our foods to last longer, or to make you addictive, or then also almost be, declined for later on when you need the pharmaceutical drugs. So I truly believe when you look into that complete change of the 1800s, where it was a good intention and a great idea to preserve food, to a complete history change, 1901 onwards. And it was purely just, what can we add chemically to last longer for the food not to decompose? But you can't expect something to, not decompose, but then you eat it, you can't digest it.
No.
So there's a little bit of an inspiration I just wanted to share in, and this is hard because I'm talking to you in America, and as far as I believe, you don't have labels on all your products. Is that true?
Shh.
You see, we Southwest in most European countries, and especially here in Australia, you can read the label. You can read what kind of preservatives are in there, what their names are, and then you can put the time and the effort
Mm,
into actually looking into what they all mean. And also, I mean, really, if you do want to spend the time, and for all the listeners and the viewers, I just pulled a very basic slide up. If you even just type into Mr. Google, they
mhm,
will actually teach you what preservatives are.
right.
It's just that we've lost the time and the interest to even being able to articulate all these long words. you know,
Some of them
Raphael,
you can't even pronounce.
that's right. Like I literally surrendered and thought I'm not even going to try and speak out all these really long chemical names. And but again, that sort of shows that we don't talk about these things. We don't look up what they mean.
Mhm,
And with this episode, I feel like I just want to inspire people to look into, it's not just about salt or sugar. There's so much more behind what genetically modified means and what other things are actually preservatives that will absolutely destroy mainly your gut bacteria.
right.
And I personally believe, and I have to say this very clearly, I personally believe it does also alter your spiritual awareness, your mental health,
Mm,
your clear thinking. I truly believe if you're not eating healthy, or you actually have almost like an allergy, or you can't tolerate these preservatives, it's going to slow your immune system down. It's going to slow your gut bacteria, your microorganisms down. It's going to also slow down your ability to have clear thoughts. And this is, a huge wake up call, especially for parents, if it's from young kids, or especially teenage hormones. If they're eating preservative foods every day, there's
mm.
almost no chance they can have clear, fresh thoughts because they're not eating enough fresh food.
No, not at all. I'm going to be honest with you. When we're talking about this, there's a show that comes to mind, and we're talking about preservatives. And there's a show that I used to watch when it first came out. It was called The Walking Dead, if you recall that show.
Mhm.
And if you saw, they went into these homes because there's no food, nobody's making food. And then they would look into the shelves and the cabinets and look for canned food because obviously that's the only thing that survived, right?
Survived.
And then eventually, when they got their own campgrounds, they started growing their own food in
Mm,
order to be able to survive. But we're not in that state. That's not real, right? And there's no zombies coming after you. So you can actually, even in your own home,
mm.
start to grow some vegetables and, things of that nature. And they have all these different things that you can even buy now. They have these pods that you can
Yeah.
have, and you can grow different vegetables and all these things. Now, I do live in New York. I have a friend of mine who lives in New York City, and they do have, but even when I worked in New York City, I used to go, if I went into work on the weekends, which sometimes I did, I would go there, and on my way home, I would stop by the fresh fruit market, and there would be these farmers that would come out, and they would bring all this, and it was packed because
Mm,
people said, "Wow, fresh fruits and vegetables," right? And it was different, and it was a big hit, right? And it still is. But one of the things that my friend does is she grows so many different vegetables, and she has like this great garden in her home, and she lives in the heart of Manhattan, New York City. So
that's
it does
impressive.
not mean you can't do it.
No.
It just means you have to put the effort in, right?
If you have a window, which I
Mm,
presume most people have,
let's hope.
even just that little bit of sunshine that can come through a window, you can build, as you said, these little pods up. So even for the city people, and again, we're just here to inspire with this episode. We're not here to criticize. We're not
No.
here. We are sharing our compassion and our love, and
Yeah.
in inspiring you again to go, how can I eat healthy, but also why, and what changes will I have, not just physically, but also spiritually.
Right.
And talking on a spiritual level, I think the last 2-3 years have been as quite difficult for mental health as it is. A lot of people went through
It has.
severe lockdowns.
Mm.
So obviously tin food, once again, was popular. I mean, I am completely honest here on this episode. When we had a few lockdowns here in Australia as well, I bought some tin foods as well. But I was aware of why I'm doing that in that situation. But if you're waking up, let's say tomorrow morning, and you don't have zombies and you're not in a lockdown, please put that little bit of effort in, find out where your fresh markets are. And we've mentioned this before on an episode, Raphael. You actually meet wonderful people. Because you're going to be around other people who probably have more of that clarity and that shining heart chakra because they've been eating healthy foods.
Yeah.
Now, that's a personal opinion, but I am expressing it. There's another thing, obviously, what I was researching, which was quite shocking for me. In the 60s, it started with, baby food being in tin. I felt quite naive looking into the time history of how soon also, parents were advertised in do the right thing for your children and your family and have seasonal based foods and a balanced diet. And for the viewers and the listeners, I've just pulled a slide up with really old school tins, actual baby faces on it with a vegetable omelette. And I just had this vision going, that could you imagine having an omelette out of a tin
Oh my God.
and feeding it to your newborn baby? But
I
again,
just lost my appetite.
I know. And most of these were again from Monsanto. And this is in the 60s. And the 60s was, and I'm sorry if this is, quite a sensitive, awful subject, but Raphael, we're going back to the Vietnam War, where Monsanto was the only producer of Agent Orange. And that was when they had that terrible incident where they sprayed the crops to see the oppositions, and they killed over 400,000 people, and still nowadays have birth defects due to this Agent Orange. Now, this is at the same time in the 60s when all of that happened. They were advertising, have a vegetable omelette out of a tin for your newborn baby. So I'm questioning a bit again with the history of this is, so all the babies that were born sort of 60s, 70s, that generation, you might want to start asking your parents, if you can, God bless, what kind of foods did I grow up with? And then reflect that maybe onto what are you eating now and what it's done to your health. And maybe have you continued that cycle? Because very often what you grew up with is what you like and desire as an adult. So, and this is where, as an example with Nestle, and yes, I just said it, two big companies here. I'm going to have you knocking on my door screen. But Nestle, everyone knows this, do your research. They sell both the breakfast snacks and then the diabetes pills for when you're an adult. So, but the 60s, Raphael, had a huge, almost boom of feeding newborn babies tin food and preservatives. So you're growing up with actually quite poisoned food. And that was my phone.
You know,
Was you?
Celeste,
Was mine
no
this time?
problem. Usually I'm the one with the alarms.
Yeah.
You know, when I was a kid, right? Like I said, I didn't know any better. And my
Mhm.
parents, unfortunately, even though they were both educators, they didn't do that research. They didn't do that particular. They thought, hey, if it's being sold in the supermarket, it must be okay,
Yeah.
right? We were naive, right? As consumers, and we were fed lies, and we still are. But
Still are.
now we can educate ourselves so much more than we did back in when I came to this country in 1973, 75, 1980, and so forth. As a teenager, if I had money, I would go and look for some of these foods myself.
Mm.
I'm like, oh, I want that TV dinner. Looks good. Yum. My God, you cannot force me right now to eat a TV dinner. I rather just drink water instead, right? But, you know, myself, I was guilty of eating and purchasing these foods until one day I decided, what's in here? What am I
Mm.
eating? And when I decided to wake up, if you will, right? Because so many of us are not awake, we're not aware. And so when I personally decided, what am I consuming? And one of the things that I do nowadays is I look at my food and I talk to it. I'm like, what are you going to do to my body? How are you going to treat me? What happens to me? What happens to my gut? What happens to my health? What happens to my brain if I consume you? How am I going to feel an hour after I eat you? So, one of the things when I was younger, I can eat 10 pounds of pasta and I was fine. If I eat one bowl of pasta now, I feel bloated. So a lot of times, and if I even go to an Italian restaurant, I never look at the pasta dishes at all. And even people like, oh, you don't want any pasta with that? I'm like, no. So
With that.
because,
Because
and
it's
if I,
America, right? You have the big portions. Do you want to have pasta with your
huge
pizza?
portions. Yeah, huge portions. And when I was younger, I used to go because I have a very fast metabolism and I could not gain weight. I was very thin. I was very thin. And for lunch, I used to go to this restaurant, Italian restaurant, and I used to get 4 slices, lasagna, and maybe a meatball hero. And I still could not gain weight. And when the first time I ordered that, they thought I was going to sit with someone. I sat by myself and ate all this. And and the owners of the restaurant, they like passed me by. They're like, okay, he's eating. And I ate everything. And then eventually I had friends of mine come and I would order similar stuff like that. And I would eat bowls and bowls of pasta and still not feel full. And so once in a while, they used to bring me a huge bowl, a huge, and they used to go here after I ordered 3 meals. And then they would give me a fourth one and they would just like sit back and see, is this guy going to eat it?
They
And
probably did bets, money bets.
and I did. I ate it. And they're like, oh my God, this guy, but I should have been 500 pounds. I was not. I was as thin as my pinky. And it took me a long time to slowly start to be able to gain weight. Now, a lot of people who are listening to this, they're probably going to be mad at me. They're like, I can't even lose the weight. And meanwhile, you're eating all this food and you can't gain the weight. So we all have different battles that we fight. But when I realized that, I even used to drink the protein drinks. I
Oh,
used to drink 3 to 4 protein drinks every single day and eat like that.
my
That was
God.
my lunch, right? I would go back to the office. 2 hours later, I would have a huge protein drink. And because I worked in a particular office where we had a chef, after lunch, he'd put out whatever leftovers and I would eat that. Then I would go home and have about 5 dinners. It was crazy. I am so surprised that my body even allowed me to eat that way. But I went through this process of eating processed food. Process, right?
Yes.
Of eating all these foods that right now I would never even touch. Like I said, if I do have pasta, it's a handful and it has to be whole wheat,
Mm.
right? So I realized that I can't eat the way I used to when I was in my 20s, right? But I still have a big appetite. What I do now is if I have a meal, a big meal, I don't eat it all. I eat half of it. And then an hour later, or even several hours later, I'll eat the other half. So I am still sustaining my body, but I have made a conscious decision as to what I put into my body, which is what this show is about. We're trying to inform someone. Listen, do you want to know how much money is made
Mm.
every year on just canned foods? Okay, $15.7 billion. And this is how many cans are consumed only in America. I'm not talking about any other country. 130 billion cans of food are consumed every year. And the
Pah.
number is growing. So it's a big, big money. They also employ over 28,000 employees with plants in 33 states, Puerto Rico, and American Samoa. So think about why we are fed these types of foods now.
Mm.
It's not
Definitely.
for our health, it's for their pocketbook, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, as you said, we grew up with it, so we
Mm,
don't know any better.
right.
So we are also addicted to it without realizing.
Mhm.
And also, on a psychological view onto it, food is often there to replace love, affection,
Yes.
reward, and it's pleasure. So a lot of people eat to probably, try and balance something else in their lives.
Yeah.
So again, they are designing the covers and the almost like the coloring and the whole story behind why you should eat this, because they
Mm,
know exactly you're maybe lonely or you're this or you're that, and you're replacing some emotion that you're needing
mhm.
or desiring, or you don't have, with food.
Right.
And again, I'm honest, I love food. And if I maybe don't feel so well, if you give me a big portion of pasta, I'll feel better afterwards. I
Not me.
know, right?
Right.
So, but I then go nowadays for the gluten-free pasta and all of that. So I'm very aware nowadays of reading the labels, but also understanding a little bit what preservatives are.
Mm,
And being in the theatrical industry, I had to always eat very fast, which is incredibly unhealthy as well.
right.
So it's also time. They're selling us not just the emotions you'll get from it, but
Mhm.
also the time. It's quick. We're here to support your lifestyle.
Yeah.
And but it's these forever chemicals. And once you read up what forever chemicals mean, and we'll get to that in a second, you'd be so shocked in realizing there's no way you can digest it. And without going into for too much detail, but you got to have number two every day. To all the listeners and viewers, if you're not doing the number two once a day, you're actually in deep trouble, because it means you're not digesting what you ate, and it's just brewing with poison inside. And as an example, on the 7th of February, we've got Eleni Woods on as a guest speaker. She actually will also mention that a lot of her clients that come for Chinese medicine, they do all the right things, but some of them admit, I just do number two once or twice a week. They're not realizing that that's why they feel fatigue. They can't concentrate, mood swings, hormones up and down. It's because you're eating food that cannot be dissolved, cannot be digested, cannot be decomposed. And in theater, I often went through a few years of eating protein bars, and they really advertise with healthy fats, natural sweetness, high fiber, micronutrients. The truth is, though, again, look at the shelf life.
Yes.
So, it's almost like, I'm eating a fitness protein bar, but we're not. And yes, the ingredients is in there also in the recipe, but once again you turn it around, the very wincy tiny little fine print, that is the ones that will actually explain to you, the preservatives that are in it, and that's why they can last so long. It's the same with the, ready to make breakfast meals, with the fresh yogurt and the oats and the fruit. If it's in a goddamn plastic box and it lasts up to 3 years on a shelf, that's not your fresh breakfast. So it's really hard, because want to.
It's not. Before you go on, you just reminded me. I had a health coach with me, and she's like, I wanted to know how long a hamburger from McDonald's lasted. She had it for 4 years. 4 years, and it looked brand new. It looked like she just bought it. 4 years. And I'm like, oh my God. A hamburger, including the bun. Nothing got damaged. And it was like, oh my gosh. Can you imagine? This is why fast food, it may be fast going to getting it, but it does not process in your body fast. It's gonna hurt you so bad. Somebody said to me, oh yeah, fast food. I'm like, I can't recall the last time I had fast food.
Good. I'm very proud of
it. Yeah. But when I was younger, it was a treat. I was telling another health coach that I had on one of my shows that it was a treat for us. When I was a kid, McDonald's was not near my house. Now there's one, like, I can walk to it, Don't get me wrong, it'll take me 7 minutes, but it's like, I don't know, let me think about it. It's about 8 blocks away from my house, right? If I go another direction, there's other fast food places and so forth. But when I was a kid, it was 2 miles away. So me and my friends would go, and it was a treat. We would walk to it. And we could take our bicycles, but for some reason, we used to like walking, and we played games along the way, and it was an adventure. And it was not an everyday thing. So the reason I'm bringing this up is because I had a instructor of mine. She started out heavy. She started coming to my kickboxing classes, and she lost 60 pounds. She did phenomenal. And she was a single mom, and she had a daughter. And eventually, she was so good, she started teaching for me. I did not know how out of convenience, fed her daughter. Convenience. Her daughter ate breakfast from McDonald's. Her daughter ate lunch from McDonald's. Her daughter ate dinner from McDonald's every single day. Her daughter was this little, beautiful, thin, very thin girl,
Mm.
but she wouldn't eat any other food.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know what's ever happened to this young girl. I heard last time that she was in college and so forth, but I don't know what her insides probably are going to look like, what problems she may face later on, if that's what her, let's call it a diet, her lifestyle was. Her lifestyle was fast food. And I can only imagine what damage this poor child went through. And maybe, who knows, maybe that's what she still eats today. And
Well,
even
that's
though I talked about it, I had a big program with a doctor, and it was that Biggest Loser program, and we
Yes.
did we did our own, and I had a doctor, we had people, she had a ton of people who were overweight, and we made a challenge to win $1,000 in a certain amount of time, whoever lost the most amount of weight, and we gave this person the money. Can I tell you, one of the deals was, in order to be in the program, I had to go to your house
I
and
love that.
get rid of your bad foods. Do you know how many cans of food I took out of people's homes? How many? There was one girl who used a gallon of olive oil a week. A week.
Mm.
Other people, I took cases and cases of soda. One girl drank 7 cases of soda a week. And I went into another person's refrigerator, and the freezer was frozen bagels. She had 2 refrigerators, and then the other one's all frozen foods, frozen dinners, like we were talking about. And I literally took big garbage bags and put all this in there and took it out of their house. And some of them were crying
yeah, because of that. That's the emotion again, right?
because
It's
I was
emotions.
taking something that they were used to. Now what are they gonna eat? So I would even show them how to, we even brought them into, uh, my home, and I taught them how to cook
Yeah.
because I cook, right? So I taught them how to cook healthy, how to cook a chicken, how to cook different things, how to make vegetables, how to, have a healthy meal. And it was great. A lot of people went through a lot of transformations.
Mm.
But I got to tell you, their blood levels, because it was monitored by this doctor that I worked with. And we started with everybody's blood levels, all their different, if you will, the cholesterol, every little thing. And it was all the blood work that was done.
Yeah.
And what wound up happening is, within weeks, they changed. Some of them stopped being on certain medications. And it was all based on the processed foods they were eating
Yeah.
and the fact that they were working out. They also had to work out with me several times a week. But we can make a difference in our bodies and in our lifestyles
Mm.
if we want to.
Mm.
I have to tell you, the girl that won because she wanted the money.
Mm.
She lost 61 pounds. She gained back 90
Mm.
because she just did it for the money. And the doctor, her heart was broken because she believed in this girl, and it was one of her clients. And
Mm.
she said, Raphael, you're not going to believe what happened to her. I said, oh, I can only imagine. She said, yeah. And so this doctor was trying to get her back on track, but to no avail.
The attitude is not there because it's sort of going back to who do you want to be? What kind of person do you want to be?
Right.
And what's the outcome for your brain development, for your brain function,
Right.
to then have the ability to have spiritual awareness, to have your personality, to have your career, to be happy, to be creative. So it's not just that we are inspiring people to lose weight. You can be a very happy plus size person and still actually, this is more really just about your organs as well. And I think so often it's been misunderstood. It's not just about weight gain that we want you to eat fresh.
Right.
It's about how are your kidneys going to be, and your liver and your gut bacteria when you are older. And as you said, this little girl, she ate McDonald's 3 times a week and she was skinny. Okay, because she had that metabolism, but the preservatives, all the salt and the sodium and all these chemicals inside come to her, let's say even 40s and 50s, hormones, organs, all of that. It'd be interesting to see what pharmaceutical drugs she'd be on nowadays. And but going
you can
back,
only imagine.
You said something about treats, and we all deserve treats. We use treats, like I have my dark chocolates for treats, and things like that. But there's one that I wanted to mention, which is very, very famous, and I know we all do it, and it is popcorn. Because popcorn, even just the smell of it, which is an extremely it's a chemical scent that they add to it, again, that you actually not really able to process in your body. So that in itself, the chemicals are actually luring you into eating the popcorn. But number one, it is extremely constipating. So those who are already eating healthy, you're not even going to get that out. But secondly, it has so much preservatives in it, and also just from the chemicals in the factories. So please, for those who do think every time I go to the movies, I'm going to treat myself to popcorn, guys, like ladies and gentlemen, you want to start reading about the forever chemicals that are in popcorn. And this is, again, it started as a tradition, 1920s, where it was such a beautiful thing to go to the movies. So again, it had that positive intentions to eat something with the movies, but it was perfect by them to introduce that, because now, let's be honest, 99 people out of 100 that will go to the movies will eat popcorn, because it's become a tradition. It's become a habit. And but then, and actually, Raphael, I was reading that in the 1920s, drug dealers used to purposely do drug deals in the cinema, because at the time, police dogs were still trained, and there was something in that chemical substance for the smell that is still the same one nowadays. It overrides the smell, and the dogs would walk straight past the popcorn. So that was a big thing, apparently, also in the 1920s, where the police were like, check everyone with the popcorn, because our dogs won't sniff anything. So there's a very funny part about popcorn that I was reading as well. But again, we sometimes think, oh, it's just a treat. But if this is a treat you're doing once a month or twice a month or your whole life, it's going to have that effect. Another one I was looking into was how we think we're doing the right thing in reading. As an example, at the moment in our house, we're really focusing on no plastic as much as we can, no plastic.
As possible.
And then the few plastic things we have, it usually has the 10 cents at the back. So we try and bring them back, and then use the vouchers to buy more food, things like that. But when you read BPA-free water bottles, that was a huge marketing thing. Now, when you start reading into what regrettable substitution means, and that is basically where they've gone, oh, we're so sorry. We're actually feeding you complete poison. We do apologize. Now it's BPA free, but then we went from BPA to BPS. Then they apologized again as a development of new alternatives, calling it in business language, and also for the insurance, it's regrettable substitution. So that is a real expression. That's a real thing
Wow.
where they just take one out, but they just basically, it's a loophole where they get away and just adding another cousin chemical in there. And I'm calling it a cousin chemical because, for example, with the BPA and all of that, they have over 6,000. So all they do is they make us think, oh, I'm doing the right thing by buying, as an example, BPA products, BPA free products, sorry. But the truth is, it's just another loophole. And because your brain's now being triggered and going, I'm doing the right thing. But, so again, it's just with this episode, I really want to inspire people to read every single word on the label and start researching what all these little short words, what do they mean? And when you really look into also with PFAS, so PFAS, which is in like almost everything. Most people know it from Teflon pans, so it makes things stick. We have it in raincoats, we have it in working gloves and safety jackets, in our water, in some of our foods. So, Subway, Starbucks, I used to buy a lot from North Face. It's a clothing company. And so, again, it's a bit of a wake-up call and going, well, if I'm buying from these companies, you are also supporting the constant adding of, for example, you see, there's so many little short descriptions here. That's
confuse you.
That's right. But PFAS is so damaging, Raphael. And sometimes you sort of joke and going, "Oh, how can drinking water or wearing a raincoat give you kidney cancer?" But the truth is, because you are contributing towards still the manufacturing of these preservatives. So again, it's what kind of person are you? Where do you see yourself in 3 to 5 years? Where do you see your tribe and your community in the next 10 years? Because I can tell you right now, if you're going to feed your community or yourself with more and more preservatives, we're not going to be clear thinking and spiritual and healthy and being able to actually tune in with Mother Nature and tune in with this planet. Because it's a very personal opinion, but when you eat fresh, you're able to think fresh, beautiful new thoughts. So again, we have certain traditions, certain treats. Look into what your treat is. Popcorn, man, I mean, I can't do it anyway. I don't do popcorn anymore. But please look into, what does it mean, regrettable substitution? What does it mean, forever chemicals? Where does it come from? And how long is it going to be in your stomach? Because if it can last for 5 years in a tin, let's be honest,
that's dangerous.
So it's fluorinated compounds. That's what it sort of comes down to. And you can't break it down. You're going to have that in your stomach forever.
When I was a teenager, when I was 14, I believe, I started working in a movie theater. And I got lucky. My sister got me the job. I was my height already, 6'1", at that age. So they thought I was 18. That's how I got my job. And so I was working in movie theaters. And, of course, they had popcorn. We had a popcorn room with bags and bags of already we didn't make the pop. It wasn't freshly popped. It was huge, clear plastic bags that were 4 feet tall, and they were, I don't know, 2 feet wide. They were huge. And there was bags and bags and bags. And then we used to bring those bags to the concession stands. And then the butter. It's not butter. That was not butter. And then people say, can I get it with extra butter? Can I get, And then you would give them with extra butter. And they're like, can I get some more? Like, oh my goodness, there's so much, there's so much. Don't get me wrong. I used to do the same thing because I was a teenager. I'm like, wow, and I can eat it for free?
Yeah. Yeah.
What? This is
Right.
crazy. So as a teenager, yeah, I ate my good share of popcorn. But when we think about eating healthy, and you said eat fresh, a lot of people think they're eating fresh.
Mm.
So take an apple that you buy in the supermarket, and there's two different apples you can buy in the supermarket. One is the regular one that's all shiny, and then the other one is organic.
Yeah.
And you say to yourself, wow, look at the one that's organic. It costs 2 times the price, or sometimes even 3 times the price.
Mm.
I'm not going to spend that money. I'm going to go for the one that's less. It's beautiful. It's shiny,
Mm.
right? Reminds me of the Wizard of Oz, right? Have this apple in my
Yeah,
ear,
yeah,
right?
that's right. And the shining is actually nicotine spray.
Oh, yeah, I know.
Oh yes.
And
So
that's
and
why
also,
that apple
uh,
is going to last.
mhm.
Put those two apples on your counter and see
Mm.
which one
Yeah,
deteriorates
yeah,
faster, right?
yeah. I think it really comes down to we have to dedicate time in, as for example myself trying to even just pronounce most of these words, yet alone taking the time to research them and the damage it's going to do to you.
Mm-hmm.
But this is your life, this is who you are.
Mm.
So really it's almost like you can't justify to anyone that you don't have that extra hour. Let's say once a week you spend 30 minutes in just reading more about what preservatives are, what the damage is. I mean, I was watching a wonderful documentary from Russell Brand. I'm a very big fan, and he's actually vegan, and he was openly admitting and inspiring people to also understand if you are eating preservatives, so the preserved vegan foods, that's not healthy either, because again we're so manipulating, thinking, oh, I'm a
Mm.
vegan, I'm doing everything right for our
Right.
planet. But at the end of the day, it's really interesting to read why they can last that long.
That's
So
right.
again, we often think we're doing the right thing, but we haven't taken the time to truly read what's inside of them. And I think that's really what the episode is about. I had one very funny, I'm sorry, I need to mention this one, but if
Go
you're
for it.
eating a preservative that's called Olestra, which is in a lot of things, it will cause vitamin depletion and anal leaking.
Mm.
So, you know what? I don't,
I don't want
this,
anal leaking.
no, that's right. So, for all the people who don't want to have anal leaking, these are the things that can happen from preservative foods, okay?
Mm.
Just to have a bit of a laugh about it. But truly, if your fatigue, hormone issues, despite all the other illnesses, skin, lymphatic system, endocrine system, if you're not pooping once a day,
Mm.
if your mood swings, this could all be because you're not realizing you might be highly allergic to coloring, like M&Ms. I mean, there's a reason they don't melt in your hand, all
Yeah.
right? It's because they
Mm.
use the same chemicals to spray cars,
Mm.
okay? So for the cars to look nice and shiny and they don't melt, it's the same reason your M&M doesn't melt and it's nice and shiny. So, if you go on, then, keep on eating those M&Ms. They used to be my absolute favorite until I actually realized that I'm quite sensitive with my gut bacteria because I was highly allergic to gluten. And back in the 80s, they didn't really know about these things. So I would
Right.
just have huge swollen bellies until someone then slowly started bringing out the education
Mm-hmm.
on gluten. And, obviously my parents stopped it and I've been fine ever since. But that's the thing. I learned the hard way as a child, being actually quite sensitive to really having to read everything.
Mm.
And even for those who go, I'm vegan. Well, I eat everything's plant-based. Again,
Yeah.
read
Yeah.
the label. It was a
You
really,
may.
yeah. Yeah.
you know.
So, but on a good
Oh, I like
night,
that picture in the middle. I like the
yes,
food that
yes.
makes your brain, right?
We've always had similar creative slides like this, and we obviously we have a lot of listeners on our shows, so we're trying to get more into storytelling than into slides.
Mm,
But I'm just putting this one up again because when you, even with the basic, let's say basic access to Google, this is not even going read books, follow doctors, going to
mm,
nutritionists, herbalists, all these things. You can read exactly what is very high in nutrition dense. For example, kale, avocado, spinach, bok choy. Okay. These four are one of the highest in nutrient dense foods. So have your little treats, have your little naughty habits, but
yeah,
add something
yeah,
healthy into it. No one's saying that you have to, it's almost impossible to eat extremely clean every single day unless you really live in your own built cottage, maybe somewhere, in the
in a bubble.
wilderness, obviously, right? But again, if you live in big cities, you have a stressed life, you there is time pressure.
Yeah,
Then think, okay, well, I'm going to make myself a list of these things. If I can add that every single day, it's going to give me a lot. Like, thank God I love avocado. So, avocado,
likewise.
bok choy, kale, those four every single day, get them in there. It will support also then the movement and the digestion of all the other preservatives you might have eaten.
Oh yeah, oh yeah,
So, but yeah, I mean, really looking into like preparing for this episode was quite a journey because it truly made me realize how we have huge corporations that make you think you're eating healthy because it's advertised like that. You
yeah,
think they're supporting us for time, nutrition, all these things. But the truth is, keep reading
you have
down and
to.
further down on that label.
Oh yeah.
There's a reason why they want you to eat this on a daily basis.
You know, Celeste, I got to tell you, I like saying the word bok choy. It feels like I'm doing martial arts. But yeah, eat. A lot of people, they think that to have a snack, it has to come out of a bag or out of a box, right? You can eat carrots, clean them off, peel them off. You can have grapes. You can have celery. You can have all these different things. But one of the things that cracks me up all the time when people say, but I eat my vegetables. Yeah, they'll have broccoli with processed cheese on top of
Extra
it.
melted
Yeah, but it's
in the
processed.
microwave.
But it's, yeah, in the microwave. It's delicious. It may be, but it's still processed.
Mm,
And so you're taking something that's good and then you're kind of killing it, right?
yeah.
So, what is it that we want to do with our lives? Think about every day, and we talked about it in the beginning. You have a chance to regain your health every day. Listen, it's okay. We all made I make tons of them. Listen, I used to buy my own TV dinners, right? When I was a teenager because I
What
thought I was
movie?
getting a treat, right? I used to go when I was a teenager. It wasn't an everyday deal, but I used to treat myself. I thought I'm treating myself. I can't tell you, it's, my gosh, way over 20 years that I've been to a fast food restaurant or, done any of those things. But when we can think about our future, we can't live in the past because that is the past. It's
Mm,
it's done with. And it doesn't matter what you did yesterday. What matters is what you do today, right? And tomorrow and the day after. One of the things that I forget who said this, but there's two places you can't live. You can't live in yesterday and you can't live in tomorrow. but you can live in today. That's the one place you should live in, today. Today is the day where you make a difference in your life. Celeste, guess what time it is?
It's too fast. So much information.
We do have a lot, right? But listen, before we go off, we have a holiday that's coming up. It's celebrated and it's gotten out of hand. You're wondering what holiday is that?
Because we've
It
got
really,
Big Australia Day coming up, and
it's not really a holiday, but people are trying to make it that, right? It's not, businesses don't close for it, but billions and billions of dollars are made on this particular day.
oh, are you talking about Valentine's
I
Day?
am talking about Valentine's Day. So can I send you a heart-shaped pear?
Yes, please.
The other thing you talked about is, and I know we have to wrap it up. You talked about leaky,
Yes.
right? But if you think of a plumber, right? If you have an actual leak in your home, if you hear your tap water and it's going tick, tick,
Mm,
tick,
like
and you
torture.
let it go, and you let it go, and you let it go, and you let it go, and then it's a little pipe, has a little water coming out, little water, right? Eventually, that may burst. And then you're going to have bigger problems. So
And
don't
people
have leaky bowel syndrome, right? Don't, the one that cracks me up is when all these commercials come on for all these medications and they say, may cause death, may cause leaky bowel syndrome, may cause that. And I'm like, why would you want to take that? The reason some people have no choice but to take certain medications is because they continue to eat these products that continue to make their health deteriorate. Take control of you, right? You are beautiful. You can make a difference today. And it's not going to show up tomorrow necessarily. But if you do it day in and day out, your life will get better.
Yeah. And this
And you
planet,
may smile more.
you're going to raise the vibration of yourself, then be able to also shine that out, attract the people that are on the same wavelength of, that kind of positive vibration. And I
Yes.
truly believe, and I've made it very clear on this episode, it's a personal opinion, but if you eat fresh, you're going to have fresh, beautiful thoughts. If you're going to eat something that can last for 5 years in a tin, I don't believe you can have that chakra alignment. That's my statement for today.
You know, I rather have somebody say to me, "Hey, Raphael is fresh, but he's not processed." With that note,
Yeah.
Celeste, have an amazing rest of your evening, and I will have an amazing rest of my morning.
Good day.
I've been, yesterday, there was a comment said to me. I said, you have a whole life before people wake up.
Yes.
They're like, you do so much before most people wake up. And I'm like, yes, I know. And one of those amazing things is I get to share my time with a beautiful person, a beautiful soul, somebody who really believes in helping other people. And that is you, my dear. So thank
That's
you.
what we do. This
Yeah.
is what the Seer Show is about. And we are so excited with this year 23. We've got amazing guest speakers coming,
Oh,
doing
yeah.
the true storytelling.
Mhm.
And so, for any of those as well listening and viewing this episode, please don't be shy. Come and share your story,
Mm.
because the more we do this, the more we're going to have the same positive vibrational level on this planet. Let's
That's
do
right.
it.
And
Because I think
listen,
we only have like 30 years left and then we've completely destroyed our planet. So, the time's ticking just a little, guys.
it
It
is.
is. It's ticking.
It is ticking. But you know
Oh,
what? Even if you feel like, oh, I don't know, I can't be on a show like this, or I'm camera shy, maybe you know somebody.
yeah, true.
Somebody who is, maybe you know an author, maybe you know somebody who's in the health and fitness industry. Send them our way. We'd
But
love to have a conversation, right?
But Raphael, at the end of the day, if they're camera shy, first of all, we can have a good chat to them. Secondly, we can have an avatar because it's about, or a beautiful picture. It's about your story and your voice
Mm,
and the information. So please, if there's someone out there and you're just holding back because you're thinking, oh, I'm not going to be on live camera. I mean, I sometimes don't even worry anymore about what I wear because it's not about that. We're
yeah,
here to share the content.
yeah.
So speak up. Maybe that's my last word for today. Speak up and speak the truth.
The truth. That's it. That's why this is called the Seer Show. We always seek the truth.
The truth. That's right.
Enjoy, everybody. Have an amazing, amazing rest of your day. Bye bye.
Good evening.